This episode of Fun Science is brought to you by Spread the Net.
Have you ever been obsessed with a TV show? Have you ever completely lost yourself in a good book? Do you also cry like a baby every time you watch that scene near the end of Toy Story 3? Because even though you know they're just computer animated toys, they feel like childhood friends, and you just can't bear the thought of anything bad happening to them. Sorry, I need a minute. Well, if any of that sounded familiar, it's probably because you found yourself caring about fictional characters. While we know that these stories aren't real, we still invest our emotions in them as if they were. So why do we do this? Well, it might be that our brains aren't quite as good as we'd like at telling the difference between what's real and what's fiction.
Fun science, fun science, fun science, it's the science of fun, yeah.
Take this dot, for example. If it just stays there doing nothing, as dots normally do, then it's not showing any signs of life, and so we react to it as we would to any inanimate object. However, if I put it inside of a maze and animate it, then it appears as though the dot has some kind of agency, and we naturally start assigning motivations to it, like, hey, it's trying to escape the maze. And then we begin to empathize with it, thinking about, say, how we might feel if we were inside that maze. Ah, yay, it did it.
Basically, so long as something appears to be an agent, i.e. we see it displaying a certain level of autonomy, then we react towards it as if it were alive, regardless of whether or not it actually is. Now, for early man, this likely didn't make any difference. If something showed it had agency, it was probably because it was actually alive.
However, these days it's possible for us to simulate agency, so even when we know that something isn't really alive, part of our brains still thinks that it is. And this has actually been shown experimentally. When people witnessed affection directed towards a human, a robot, and an inanimate object, their reactions towards the robot and the human were actually very similar.
Aw, that's nice.
But their reactions towards the inanimate object, not so much.
I mean, are you gonna eat this, or... 'cause I'm kinda hungry. Now, the same idea can be applied to fictional characters too. It doesn't matter that we know our favourite TV characters are being portrayed by actors, because subconsciously we believe those characters are real people. What's more is that sometimes fictional characters can have an effect on how we act in the real world.
It's actually been shown that when you lose yourself in a story, you can undergo what's called experience taking, where you begin to feel the thoughts, beliefs, and emotions of a character as if they were your own.
I am Sir Godfrey the Great, the mightiest knight that this here kingdom of Shalavalrella has ever known.
You're actually more likely to lose yourself in a story if it's written in the first-person perspective, or if you share a strong group identity with the character in question.
Also, I sometimes worry that my tiny armor makes me look fat.
Wow, Godfrey the Great has body image issues too? Also, I suddenly feel a very strong urge to protect the kingdom of Shalaralhala. Now, one study actually showed that participants who went through this experience taking while reading a story about someone overcoming obstacles in order to vote were actually more likely to go out and vote in a real election several days later. There are other studies that have shown similar things too. For example, when people lost themselves in stories where characters were revealed late in the narrative to be of a different sexual orientation or race to that of the reader, the subjects were found to be less likely to stereotype against those that they read about.
By the way, I happen to be homosexual. Not that that makes any difference when it comes to my ability to protect this beautiful kingdom. I just thought you might like to know a little bit more about me.
I suddenly feel less biased towards people who are of a different sexual orientation to myself. Thanks, progressive narratives! There's also evidence showing that people who read more stories overall tend to be more empathetic.
In one experiment, where people were tested on their theory of mind, which is your ability to understand the mental states of others and how they differ from your own, subjects were shown images of eyes and asked to guess what the person in the photo was thinking about. And those who got the most correct were also the people who tended to read the most fiction.
So, remember to pick the stories you consume wisely, because not only could it affect how you see the world, but also how you act in it. And don't get mad at yourself for getting super invested in the lives of fictional characters, because as far as your brain is concerned, it probably thinks those people are just as real as anyone else. See you next time! Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to watch some more science content from this guy right now, then be sure to check out this video that I made for Plan International Canada and Spread the Net, which is about the science behind the malaria disease and what you can do right now to help prevent people from getting it and save lives. So do please give that a watch, and I also want to say a big thank you to everyone who is supporting Fun Science on Patreon. I'm incredibly thankful. It's very surprising to me and it means a lot. And for anyone else who might be considering helping us to make Fun Science, do head on over to patreon.com/funscience for more information on that. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye bye.